Coming back after having been here last week. That's a good sign when I see people coming back. We do have a lot of things to continue from last week. We have our in-house announcements, which I'd like to begin with. And by now you've deduced that Pastor Billy is not here. So am I giving you some good updates or what? I mean, you wouldn't have known if I didn't tell you, right? But the news is he will be coming back later this year. Now, that doesn't sound right? It's January later this year. Okay, I'm going to rephrase that. He'll be back in a few days. He's getting some much-needed family vacation time. I'm just a cheap fill-in. It's always a privilege and honor to be here. And I want to start the show with some in-house announcements. So let's take a look at this. We do have Ken Michael from Jan Markell Ministry coming to us. He's the next speaker since we just finished with Pastor Brandon Holthouse. And he's a retired police officer, prophecy speaker. He gives dynamic, powerful speeches. He connects the dots for current events. You don't want to miss out on that one. After him, we have Pastor Tom Hughes on March 27th coming to our church. I've been to his church. We've heard him many times before. He's a powerful, dynamic speaker. He's on every week on YouTube. And these are the people that I listen to for updates. So we're blessed to have him come on our way. Also, we have Pastor Bobby doing our online membership classes for those that are our online audience. Hello to y'all. We appreciate you tuning in. If you want to become a member, there's the email address you can subscribe to, or if you're here and in the seats before us, you're new at the church, fill out a Connect card and let us get to know who you are and see Pastor Bobby, and he'll get you plugged in so we can get to know more about you and you can get involved with our church. Now, there are some interesting slides I did come across, kind of a continuation of last week, and I have some questions. Maybe you have some answers, but some things are just not making sense to me. So let's look at some of these, okay? When you are bored, just think about a few things here. I got to get my glasses on because I'm showing my age. So let's start with, if poison expires, is it more poisonous or no longer poisonous? Which letter is silent in the word scent? Is it the S or the C? Why is the letter W in English called double U? Shouldn't it be actually a double V? Okay. Why do cars have to be roadworthy, but roads don't have to be car-worthy? I mean, where's the reciprocity? Every time you clean something, you realize you just make something else dirty. You're just moving the dust. So there's an excuse not to house clean. It is impossible to touch your elbow to your nose, just so you know this, okay? And the word swims upside down is still swims. I mean, what other word can do that, right? And if you replace the W with T in the words what, where, and when, you get the answer to each of them. How clever is that? And at a movie theater, which armrest is really yours? You just first come, first serve? And why is there a D in fridge but not in refrigerator? It disappears. And yeah, there are a few people trying to touch their noses with their elbows, trying to look chalant like they're scratching their head. Don't think I didn't notice. All right. Also, why is it that when archaeologists find human remains, they're either male or female, and none of the other 700 genders? I mean, that must be something fairly new we developed in the last few years, right? All right, let's go on. This is the worst one, okay? Pastor Billy would probably frown his head for me showing this, but I will anyway. If a cow does not produce milk, is it a milk dud or an utter failure? That was the worst one, folks. All right, we're getting through this. Now, if you're not sure about what restroom to go to anymore with the 700 genders, you see one like that, you're good to go. And do you remember the thing that I used growing up? It was called a PENCIL. Do you remember using that? It's a personal emergency non-computerized information lifesaver. You had a delete and an enter. And I know I tended to use the delete more than enter, but computer programmers anymore, they just kind of did away with that. I think that was pretty handy for a while. And with the rise in alien technologies and discussions, why do they always happen at nighttime? Well, I guess the mother's telling her little boy, it's 9 p.m. and you're just now telling me you need a human for school tomorrow? This is why they happen late at night. And now you know how to get a haircut. Why this one stands apart. All right, finishing up here. And remember the panic we had a couple years ago when you couldn't find toilet paper? Wait until you can't find a police officer. Ooh, not so good. We're defunding them. We need them. Also, it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor, the destination in the ground is the same. You can't really take it with you. I don't see a U-Haul there. And I know Pastor Billy's spoken about this in the past. What if we treated our Bibles the way we treat our cell phones that are attached to us? What if we carried it with us everywhere, turned back to get it if we forgot it, actually went to our cars, or checked for messages throughout the day within the book, or used it in case of an emergency, which is like every day, and spent an hour with it each day, like we do with our phones? Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that totally change the world? And here we kind of have the circle of life, a kumba mutata. So whether you're going uphill or downhill, enjoy the journey, enjoy the destination, and hopefully know where you're going and have a honker or some headlight in front of you. Now, we can go into the prayer room as kittens, but because we're strengthened by the Word of God, this is actually what we come out as. And finally, when we do draw our last breath, the only one thing that matters is whether our name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Is that not the truth? Okay, so we do also have multimedia ways for you to reach out to us. Billy Crone has numerous accounts on YouTube. He has the Billy Crone channel, Billy Crone Live, and Billy Crone Live broadcast. You can reach him on Facebook, Twitter, Roku, Telegram. You can download his app on iPhones or Androids. And last time I didn't mention enough, Get a Life Ministries, his main webpage, 10 years of his finest work. It's not copyrighted. You can freely share it, read it, a lot of good information and teaching on that webpage. And his latest one, Subliminal Seduction, which I've seen and enjoyed, really enlightens you about how we're being mesmerized by the mass media with certain narratives to follow, and we're not hearing the whole story, okay? So we're going to also be willing to accept any donations. We have a couple of black boxes in the back of the church. If you want to give an offering to the church, we appreciate your humble offerings with a joyful spirit. You might see a Connect card. I think you have them in the seats in front of you. If you're new here, if it's your first time, we welcome you, and we want you to fill out that Connect card, drop that in the box, and we will reach out to you. And I believe online for our audience, there's a number on the lower corner of your screen you can text to. We appreciate any help we get with the ministry. We're trying to equip the saints, teach the truth, and equip all the saints with the armor of God, as Ephesians 6 commands us to. So we're going to go ahead and open up in prayer. I just want to say, Father, this is a continuation from last week where we spoke about digital deception. We have so many Christians that are being distracted by their enemy, Satan, who roars like a lion, seeking whom he may devour. He's author of confusion. He's a liar. He wants us to spend time on ourselves, empowering ourselves, focusing on ourselves, basically disengaging from our Bibles, from our reading time, from our relationship with you. And we need to recognize these distractions, put them away, balance in our life, and equip us so that we have relationship with our Father the way he intended for us to have it. So we know Jesus came to redeem us. He saved us. He shed his blood for us. We're grateful for that. And we have salvation and a bright future through him and him only. And after all these blessings were given, the saints are happy to hear this, and they all declared, Amen. All right. So we're going to continue with our study on, here it comes, Transhumanism, Demonic Deception, Part 2. We ended last week with actually a couple of short videos of the bionic woman and the bionic man. And we spoke about social media platforms. We talked about the emergence of metaverse. That was a big part of last time I was up here. And how technology, does it really advance our society or does it not? Does it hinder it? And how much time should a Christian actually devote to multimedia platforms? How much of it is relevant? How much is obsessive? I guess you have to make those decisions yourself. So we will now be coming into the merger of man with machines tonight and seeing how we've been acclimated, prepared for it, what the future is being prepared for. And you actually are going to be going to a transhumanist convention with me tonight as we hear some of these speakers. We want to know who these speakers are. Are they Joe Schmoes? Are they schmucks? Are they just A's and B's in society? Are they powerful movers and shakers? Who are these people? What companies represent them? Where's the money and the funding coming? And what audience is listening to the transhumanist agenda? We're going to be listening to some of these speakers. We're going to see where they're being heard, and you're going to realize how influential they really are in society. And it's not only breathtaking, it's downright scary. And I can also add to it, it's downright demonic, because we are to be humble in front of the Lord. We are to have more of him and less of us. And with marvels and superhumans and special abilities that Hollywood portrays to us that we want to exalt ourselves with technology, with superhuman strength, with super robots, and it's all about us and not about the Father. So we need to examine this slowly, slice by slice, and let's take a look as we move forward on this topic. So basically, we have the merger of man and machine. And the transhumanists, by definition, are evolutionists. They are basically anti-God. So that tells you something about where they're coming from out of the corners of their mindset. And their thinking is they have time on their side. They look at evolution from the goo to the zoo to me and you to the apes to eventually robots that are going to replace us. And in fact, within 10 years, we're supposed to have 55% of our workforce replaced by robots. So what does that do for your job? Is your job secure? Do you need to act more like a robot? Or are you perhaps thinking, well, it's kind of hard to beat a robot. They don't need breaks. They don't need vacations. They don't complain, and they work 24/7. How can we keep up with that, right? We can't keep up with it. Here's how we're being acclimated through Hollywood.
I'm ready.
Start tight and then go wide.
Stamp date and time.
Mark 42, autonomous prehensile propulsion suit test. Initialize sequence. Jarvis, drop my needle.
Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtail ring,
Crap.
making spirits bright. Oh, what fun it is to sing a sleighing song tonight. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
All right, I think we got this. Send them all. Probably a little fast. Slow it down. Slow it down just a little bit.
Cool, will you, Jarvis?
Come on. Let's go to you. I'm the best.
Captain Jean-Luc Picard, you lead the strongest ship of the Federation fleet. You speak for your people.
I have nothing to say to you, and I will resist you with my last ounce of strength.
Strength is irrelevant. Resistance is futile. We wish to improve ourselves. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service ours.
Impossible. My culture is based on freedom and self-determination.
Freedom is irrelevant. Self-determination is irrelevant. You must comply.
We would rather die.
Death is irrelevant. Your archaic cultures are authority-driven. To facilitate our introduction into your societies, it has been decided that a human voice will speak for us in all communications. You have been chosen to be that voice.
So there you have it. From RoboCop to Iron Man to Star Trek. What is the common denominator there? Machines merging with man. We've been accustomed to this for a lot of years, from Hollywood, from movies, from TV series, and we really don't think about it because we've been like the frogs in the kettle. The water gets warmer and warmer. We don't notice it because we're in it. We don't see it from a distance because it surrounds us everywhere we go. So we have working right now DARPA and CRISPR, genetic splicing, mixing of human DNA with machines, inserting, cutting, splicing, moving things around, changing God's DNA of what he gave us. And realize it's kind of like a leader we currently have running the country in Washington. If we could just build back better, well, apparently there is a way to do it, and this is the agenda that's moving forward. Now realize, as I mentioned last week, if you manipulate just 1% of your DNA, you are no longer considered human. So we were created in the image of God, as I mentioned, but if we're changing that image and we no longer share that image, what do we have in connection with God? We have to ask ourselves these questions. So basically, when we, as you can tell by the picture, when God created us, we were called basically human 1.0. We were his creation. He gave us a body, a soul, a spirit, and he created us in his image. But, man comes along, and we have better ideas. We can tweak things. We can fix things up. We can add, subtract, multiply, divide, and come up with some newer, better, quicker, more efficient method. So what we have now in front of us is basically human 2.0. Welcome to the world of cyborgs. And it is basically the transhuman agenda. And there is a very strong agenda there in place. Now, John 3:36 does say, "He who believes in the Son has everlasting life, and he who does not believe the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abides on him." So think about it. God took care of all this. He gives us an immortal body, a glorified body. Rather at the rapture, if we're alive in this generation, or after we die, to be absent from the bodies, to be present with the Lord. We get a glorified body that God wants us to have that has beautiful abilities we can't even begin to comprehend. And you're going to tell me this machine recreation that Satan's behind is going to come even close to that? I don't think so. And you saw with the transfiguration with Moses and Elijah, we could see Jesus in his glorified body. The things he could do, we'd be able to do some of those things as well. So I'm like, why would I want to give that up for what the Lord gave us for a human cheap knockoff of machines and metal that aren't going to come even close? So with the transhumanist agenda, we have thousands of Swedish people that are swapping ID cards for microchips. There are 3,000 people in Sweden who have inserted a rice grain-sized microchip under their skin so they don't need to carry key cards, IDs, and even train tickets. I mean, you know how hard that is. You have all these things. Where did I put my ticket? Or where's my phone? My keys? Did I leave it in the car? It'd be just so much better if I could keep it inside me. So much easier. And you don't think the world would go for this? Oh, yeah. They'd be all over that. So basically, what we have here is the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution. Oh, I'm glad you said that, John. What about the first three industrial revolutions? What are those all about? I didn't know. Does anybody else know? Let's go through those real quick. Basically, the first industrial revolution is widely taken to be the shift from our reliance on animals, human effort, and biomass as primary sources of energy to the use of fossil fuels and the mechanical power that this had enabled. That was the first one. The second industrial revolution occurred between the end of the 19th century and the first 2 decades of the 20th century and brought major breakthroughs in the form of electricity distribution, both wireless and wired communication, the synthesis of ammonia, and new forms of power generation. So we're catching up here. And our third industrial revolution began actually in the 1950s. Some of you may remember that. I don't, but anyhow. That was the development of digital systems, communication, and rapid advances in computing power, which have enabled new ways of generating, processing, and sharing information. And now we're at the fourth industrial revolution currently in society. It can be described as the advent of cyber-physical systems, involving entirely new capabilities for people and machines. While these capabilities are reliant on the technologies and infrastructure of the third industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution represents entirely new ways in which technology becomes embedded with societies and even our own human bodies. Examples include genome editing, new forms of machine intelligence, breakthrough materials and approaches to governance that rely on cryptographic methods such as the blockchain you hear about. And we realize, folks, the transhumanist goal is to basically merge man with machine. Their wildest prophecies seem ridiculous at first until you consider the dizzying advances in what areas? In bionics, in robotics, in neuroprosthetics, in virtual reality, in artificial intelligence, AI, and genetic engineering. So we are now going to participate and listen a little bit to the Transvision Future Summit 2021 that occurred in October, not that long ago, and it was in Madrid. We're going to look at who these people were, who they represent, are they important people, and who are the companies that are endorsing them. Okay, we have a lot of pictures here. We're going to go through this fast. But the ones that I've highlighted, I find significant. Who do we have here? The first top left corner, we have John Mather, the senior astrophysicist, NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. That's pretty impressive. Next is Ray Kurzweil, director of engineering at Google. These are some powerful people, movers and shakers, people with wealth and influence. Natasha Vita-More, she promotes human skincare, anti-aging. She's captured the female audience, so you can get away with all the cracks and little divisions you have in your body. You want to be youthful, you want to be younger, you don't want to use Botox. Spend some time listening to her products and how she can reverse the aging process. She'll talk your ear off. The guy down below, Ben Gotzel, he's the one that's been working a lot with Sophia the computer, and he's been developing and progressing with her. We'll hear a little bit of Sophia shortly. Who else do we have at these transhumanist conventions? Well, we have a director of the Millennium Project. We have an honorary consul from San Marino. We have a senior research fellow, Future of Humanity Institute representative. We have a chair of London Futurists. These are international speakers that are converging into this conference, international conference. We have a co-founder of the World Transhumanist Association. Look who else is coming to these meetings. These are the speakers. We have somebody from the Institute of Aging and Chronic Disease, University of Liverpool. We have a co-chairman from the Healthy Life Extension Society, a director of research, Oversight Life Extension Foundation. These are the speakers that you'll be hearing, some of them, obviously not all of them. We have a founder and CEO of the Millennium Project. We have a CEO of Astroland Interplanetary Agency. That sounds kind of wild. And later on at the end of this, I'll go into that interplanetary perspective. We have an owner and editor of InfoLongevity.com. We also have an evangelist, technology evangelist, representative there. These are all the speakers that were there. I know that top center one looks a little bit like Pastor Bobby, but it's not him. But we have a director of European Cryonic Law and Policy Initiative. We have a professor, a University of Juan Carlos, a data scientist, entrepreneur, researchers, professors. These are the ones that write books, publish journals, teach at schools, are funded by the government. We have a digital transformation global leader and speaker of Nokia. We have a transhumanist neuropsychologist. I mean, all the angles are covered here, speaking. We also have a CEO and founder of Future Intelligences and Strategic Foresight, a lady for founder of Healthy Forever Skincare. So these are things that interest people they want to hear about. And of course, you have to have your lawyers represented, so everything is legally just, so they make their money, it's appropriated properly. Now let's look at, since we saw some of the names of the people and you can see their backgrounds and where they came, who's listening to them, where are they going, who are the companies that sponsor them? Well, we have humanity, and look at that caption. Don't limit your challenges, challenge your limits. We have somebody from the Millennial Project, Global Futures Studies and Research. These are all the companies represented there at the Transhumanist conventions. We have the Life Europe Extension, the science of a healthier life. We have Muy Interesante. That one sounds very interesting for some reason. Some of you will get that. We have Astrolun, Interplanetary Agency, as a sponsor. They're there. We also have London Futurists, Longevity in Time. Oh, in the bottom right corner, we've got to have our THC, even with merger of man and machine, got to have our cannabis. And this is actually, this slide right here caught my interest into why I even wanted to talk about this topic. I originally wanted to go into the teaching of Revelation, but I saw that there is a event that occurred just a few months ago. And where was it held, folks? At the Vatican. So the Vatican is interested in this. And look at the names on the bottom of the corner of the screen. You're actually going to hear these people. These are the powerful individuals, David Ferguson and Carlos Moreira. They're the ones that are spearheading this. They have the attention of the Pope at the Vatican. They go to Davos, Switzerland, and talk to the World Economic Forum. These people own corporations, money. They have the globalist support. They're the movers and the shakers. And these are the people that are making the changes happen, whether you agree with them or not. And they are powerful people. So, moving along here. The theme for the gathering is the challenge of artificial intelligence for a human society and the idea of a human person. The aim of the meeting is to promote a better awareness of the profound cultural impact AI is likely to have on a human society. The symposium will feature 6 experts. And what fields are they coming out of? Neuroscience, philosophy, well, of course, Catholic theology, it's at the Vatican, human rights, law, ethics, and electrical engineering. Oh, that's right. It was by invitation only, so if you didn't know about it, you weren't invited. But don't feel bad, I wasn't either, okay? So here's a face we can trust. Yeah, I got some responses on that one. He's actually behind the transhumanist movement. The Symposium on Artificial Intelligence, or AI, organized by the Pontifical Council for Culture, in cooperation with the German Embassy to the Holy See. The theme for the gathering is the challenge of artificial intelligence for human society and the idea of the human person. The aim of the meeting is to promote a better awareness of the profound cultural impact AI is likely to have on a human society. The symposium will feature 6 experts with all those areas: neuroscience, philosophy, Catholic dogma, human rights, ethics, engineering. Here's a little clip of, I believe the next person is David Carlos Moreira, who talks about some of his thoughts. And let's listen to what they're talking. This is actually from the conference that we didn't get to go to.
But isn't it in some way key to people's empowerment, the transhuman code?
Absolutely. The thinking of the Transhuman Code started in 2016 in Davos at the World Economic Forum when Klaus Schwab came with this amazing idea that we are entering into the 4th Industrial Revolution. So that was coined in Davos, that the world is entering into the 4th Industrial Revolution. But you know, when I was in the UN, and everybody knows here, that the web was invented in the city, right? We knew already at that time, and I was working in the UN at that time, that if the web is the base to create a revolution, we have a problem with the humans, because the humans are not designed in the original architecture of the web. This is like an architect that forgets to design the bathroom in your house. So one day, you're going to have a problem, right? Because you need a bathroom. So the original design on the web did not have humans. So what has happened is that the web has become now a $10 trillion ecosystem. All those companies, Facebook, Twitter, Apple, Amazon, they are reaching amazing valuations, $1 trillion. Can you imagine, $1 trillion? So that $1 trillion is actually immonetizing the human, because it was not protected originally on the infrastructure. So they used the opportunity. They saw that humans were vulnerable, and they converted human into objects. We are now all objects of the 4th Industrial Revolution. So we can keep talking and we can keep philosophizing about that, but we need to action. I mean, I'm an action person. I like to solve complex problems, right? So what we did is to say, okay, let's bring the best brains of the world, the best government leaders of the world, the best NGOs, the best lobbyists, the best conference, and let's create awareness that human needs to be protected. And then let's put the solutions in place, then put the money in place, and then put the firepower required to solve this amazing problem. We only have 5 to 10 years to solve this problem. The fight is not between humans and robots, the fight is between humans and humans. Because there are two philosophies in the world. One philosophy that says, humans, we cannot be exponentially improved, we are very slow, machines will be exponentially improved, therefore we need to be obsolete. A ultra transhumanist human will emerge that will be superior and will displace us. That's one view. The other view, which is the view we are defending, is that no, actually we are the most perfected technology ever been designed, the humans. If the human is not connected to the internet because we are not part of the architecture, what will be the kill app that makes the human in possession of something that infrastructure will need? And this is your personal identity. So now anyone, and I have been seeing other people always say how many people are in Instagram, how many people are in Facebook. Actually, you are not in Facebook, you are not in Instagram. Actually, Instagram, Facebook, and many other social media companies, they own your digital identity. Your digital identity is this key that you have, that you are giving to people without consent. It's like giving your key of your house to anybody without giving consent. So we have to bring back the consent to the user. And for that, you need to have a piece of technology, which is a digital identity, which is your key, that you will only, under your consent, give the social media companies and others to exploit your personal data, but you are the master of the key. When I created Wise Key, I needed to raise $300 million just to create a company. You know, that's basically, there was like a mountain there, because you have to do everything. You have to build your own data center. You have to recruit tons of people. You have to buy your servers. You have to pay expensive price for algorithms. In our days, because you have a $10 trillion economy already built, you have Amazon data centers available, you have open source software, AI that you can develop. So the cost of creating a company has been reduced.
So now just forget your names, whatever your mom and dad called you, and say, I'm not AJ, I have a digital ID. And you do. When you signed up for Facebook years ago, folks, you have a digital ID. And it's who gives you access, what do they do with that digital ID? We know they sell it for advertisers, so they know what you like, what you want to get, where your money will go, what makes them richer. But you are no longer really a person. It's not so much the machines that are the problem. If you listen to Carlos, it's people. It's people not getting along with people. The machines get along well with each other. We're going to have quantum computers already working, interfacing. So basically, you have to realize, where do I fit in the scheme of things? Am I a digital ID? Am I a creation of God? Where are they putting this? Where is this going forward? Basically, the transhumanists do confess there is no God, but the future computer God. I don't think so. They believe neuroprosthetics will allow communion with this artificial deity. They believe robotic companions should be normalized. And think about that in society. Robotic companions, wouldn't that be an asset to the elderly that need care? Someone to take care of them? How about somebody to take care of your cats or your dogs? What else can we do with robots? We know there is a big sex industry with robots, and if you make them more lifelike and real, you don't think the perverse nature of a reprobate mind, what men do, would just go out the window as far as money they would throw in that direction? So they believe longevity tech will confer approximate immortality. They believe reality, virtual reality, which we talked about last week, provides a life worth living. Above all, they believe that singularity is near. And it's probably closer than we want to realize. Do people understand what singularity represents? Basically, it's when the robots take over and they no longer have a need for us, or will have a different need for us. So according to the cult of the singularity and its prophet, Ray Kurzweil, remember he's connected with Google, we'll see artificial general intelligence, not for a long time, by 2029. That's not that far down the road. Unlike narrow algorithms performing specific tasks, AGI will be robust cognition enacted by neural networks, faster than any human brain could even process. By 2045 or 49, not that far away, when we hit singularity, when artificial superintelligence surpasses human intellect, oh my gosh, to the point that we cannot comprehend its output, purely organic humans will be left in the smart dust. Our only chance for long-term survival is to fuse our minds and our bodies with the all-powerful machine to become a new post-human species, human 2.0. So reliance on smartphones is an early phase of our symbiosis with machines. We've already acclimated our society. We need our smartphones. You're never away with it. You use it constantly throughout your day. So for all the convenience gained, many school teachers worry that the shift to digital platforms is making kids antisocial and functionally a generation that is being lost to self-pleasure. And that is happening in our lifetime, and it's very sad. And Psalm 14 reminds us, the fool hath said in his heart, there is no God. That is a definition of a fool. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. Throw that in here with our study. So there was an Oxford philosopher. This is interesting, folks. Anders Sandberg. He discussed a 1954 experiment in neuroprosthetics. Using electrostimulation, the scientist named James Olds discovered the pleasure center in a rat's brain. He wired up numerous rats, enabling them to stimulate themselves by pressing a lever. The rodent wireheads ceased to do anything besides pushing the lever. One by one, they died with smiles on their faces. Welcome to the world of pornography, of gaming, of social media, of self-interest. It's dopamine. It's the pleasure center they're interacting with in your mind. Gets you addicted. What's happening at the casinos, and of all places, Las Vegas, where we live. It's the dopamine factor. It's the pleasure center. And they're making money off of it. And they know how your mind controls you, so they might as well make some money off of it in the interim. Therefore, our meaning of life is to make sure the future computer God is benevolent while we still have time. In most cases, benevolent is synonymous with leftist globalists. Today's machine learning systems are prompted by programmers, then trained with our language and behavior via mass data extraction. So we're reminded, 2 Timothy 3, verses 2-4, people will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure, rather than lovers of God. Do we know our society to be like that? All too well. It's our world today. Here's a quick interview I want you to listen to with David Ferguson interviewing Carlos Moreira. And listen to what they're saying, especially toward the end. And I'll try to explain that because this kind of blew me away when I was seeing where they were going with this.
I'm less concerned and less of a believer that 50% of the workforce is going to be out of work. But I am embracing the suggestion that that up to 70% of people over the next decade will have adopted different work responsibilities. Yeah. And so that timing then becomes a key issue. When do jobs change? When should jobs change? And this is why I'm encouraging in my outreach to this restructuring turnaround community to be proactive or at least help us develop some communication tools so that we can encourage, in this case, American businesses to be more proactive in planning. It's anecdotal. I can't quantify it, but it's been suggested that fewer than 10% of Fortune 500 companies are looking far enough forward and are actually implementing plans for the adoption of new roles for their current employees. Yep. Doesn't surprise me. You run a large corporation. Yep. You've acquired other businesses. I'm guessing that it's not something that you had been thinking about doing. You are now, of course, because you're a student of change.
I really believe that it's a generational issue as well. For instance, the attitude of baby boomers like us towards jobs is totally different from the attitude of millennials towards jobs. For instance, for us, having a job means something that is going to pay our wages until we retire, and then we can pay our houses, our markets, or school kids, education, and so on. Millennials are more driven into fine activities than they are emotionally related to what they believe is right or wrong in life. You know, they are saving the world, they are creating companies, and some of them, they are not necessarily driven by profit, but because they want to clean the oceans, or they want to improve the pollution. So the millennials are having a different approach to the job. So therefore, millennials are less concerned about the consequences of the fourth industrial revolution, because actually they are hoping that the fourth industrial revolution is going to break the mold that we created about jobs. So I give you an example on where, for instance, now we don't call jobs anymore. The fourth industrial revolution, the transhuman code, doesn't have jobs. The concept of job is dead. What we have is task. You as an individual over your life, or me, we have acquired expertise on where we are actually very good. In others, we are less good, but we are mixing everything into a concept we call a job. In the future, the things that you're not good or you're less good, you will not necessarily need to sell that anymore, because there's no value for anyone to buy that from you. But you're going to take the 2 or 3 things that you do very well and better than anybody, and you're going to sell that through the fourth industrial revolution infrastructure to millions of people. Then they are going to buy that expertise for you. So you're not going to have a boss anymore. You're not going to have a company that employs you anymore. The world is your company. The world is your CEO, and you're going to be able, through the internet, to sell that expertise millions of times. I make a lot of money doing that. When I started WiseKey, required $100 million just to start. So you have to raise $100 million, go to VCs, buy data centers, buy licenses of technology. Today, my son will need something like $50,000 to do the same company I created 20 years ago. And that is the power of the fourth industrial revolution, that every person can become a company. Every person can create his own wealth and his own job. You don't have to wait for somebody to create the job for you. It requires, obviously, a mindset. And I think rather of us more or less giving the pessimist view that the internet and the fourth industrial revolution is going to reduce jobs, we have to stop that debate, because it's a useless debate. We have to move into the debate to say there's so much available for you that we didn't have. Imagine me, when I created WiseKey, having clouds for free, having the possibility to access terabytes of data of analysis for free on the internet. You know, when we started WiseKey, the internet was only 9 million people using the internet. Now we have 3 billion people using the internet. So you have 3 billion people, then you can capture ideas, then you can team online, then you can, through social media, establish collaborative networks. And in plus of that, we have now artificial intelligence that is coming to help us. So we have like the big brother helping us in the good sense of the big brother, the intellectual big brother, complementing of lacks of knowledge, of information about one sector. So this is the future I see. I see a future where people, and especially millennials, they are taking care of their own destiny. They need a less paternalistic structure than the one we had in our generation. And that's going to change everything.
So isn't that interesting what Carlos said? He believed when the internet was created, it wasn't really made for men or mankind. It was meant for machines. And what he said toward the end, I didn't quite understand. I had to research it a little bit more. He said you would sell your abilities. You would sell your knowledge. Well, as an employee, we have certain assets we contribute to our company because maybe we're not productive in these areas, or we're not skilled, or we're a little bit weak in these areas, but there's something that they hired us for that we're good at, that we have skill set. And he talked about selling. Everybody would make their own fortunes. Everybody would be in a win-win situation. You would sell your technology. Let's say you're an accountant, you're a banker, you're a high-powered lawyer, you're some sort of a congressional congressman or political action figure, whatever, some skill set that you have that people want. They would pay you for that and buy it from you. But how did they get that skill set from you? Upload. You would be digitalized. Your memories, your knowledge, your information would be digitalized. So then if they need a specific set, a mindset, a specific skill, They just type on the internet, oh, Susie Beckwell in Oklahoma, she has that skill set. I will pay her what she's asking. She gets the money, I get the knowledge. I'll download it into my system. Isn't that wild? Okay. So when do we reach singularity? Sooner than you want to think. Ray Kurzweil, director of engineering of Google, as I mentioned before, he predicted that computers will achieve human-like intelligence by 2029 and achieve singularity by 2045. So that's our lifetime, which he says is when we will multiply our effective intelligence a billionfold, merging the intelligence we have created. So we're seeing this in our generation. Put another way, society will be changed in ways that are difficult to imagine. Already, people are wondering whether we're on the verge of a utopian future where machines make the world a better place, or a dystopian one in which humans become subservient to who? Their computer overlords. Some experts are concerned that superintelligent machines could end humanity as we know it. This is not what God intended. These warnings come from the likes of physicist Stephen Hawking, who's no longer with us, and Tesla CEO and founder Elon Musk, who has famously taken flack for his doomsday attitude towards AI and singularity. Now, everybody's familiar with the name Elon Musk. What makes him separate? What makes him different than any other human being that's ever been created? That's a good question. He's on course to be the first human being, Elon Musk is, to be a trillionaire. Wow, what a category. Let's listen to what he has in mind for us through Neuralink.
2022 is shaping up to be a very big year for the Neuralink brain-computer interface. Elon Musk has been in the news and on Twitter talking about the company for the first time in a long time. And now Elon is telling the world that he expects the brain implant device to enter human trials sometime in the year 2022. And that would track pretty well with the timeline that has been unfolding so far. In 2020, we saw Neuralink in a pig. For 2021, we got the Mind Pong monkey. So a human candidate for 2022 would fit the pattern. And we are starting to see the brain-computer interface industry as a whole accelerating very quickly. This technology is coming. There's no doubt about that. It's just a question of when it reaches a viable level. What he's talking about here is the basic function of the brain, which is transmitting electrical signals through a network of connected cells called neurons. There are 86 billion neurons inside your brain, and they all serve a different purpose, but most are constructed in the same general way. There is a signal receiver called a dendrite, there is a central processor for the signal called a soma, and there is an output node called the axon. The connection point between a dendrite and axon is called synapse. Signals from the axon cause the synapse to release neurotransmitters, which are small molecules that bind to the receptors on the dendrite. And this open channel allows electrical current to flow through a neural network. The electrodes from a brain-computer interface that are placed near to the neurons can detect those activation signals as they flow into the synapses. And then, by decoding those patterns of neuron activation, we can understand what signal the brain is sending to the body. In people who experience brain injury or disease, like this guy's husband, there is a break in that network of connections. The signal is getting lost along the way. Elon is saying that in theory, we can just create an artificial bridge with electrodes that will carry that signal past the broken connection and get it where it needs to go. So Neuralink is driving much more signal through a much smaller device. Instead of sitting on top of a patient's head and being hardwired into a computer, the link will sit inside the skull and connect with Bluetooth. The existing technology only works inside the laboratory or hospital setting, while the Neuralink can come home with a patient and be used by them throughout their day-to-day lives. And the Neuralink does not even require a brain surgeon. The company's automated robot design imaging systems and software can precisely and efficiently insert the threads through a single 8mm skull opening while avoiding blood vessels on the surface of the brain. Elon's fear is that if the computer and the artificial intelligence grows in power and capability, but the bandwidth of our connection to that computer remains small, then the artificial intelligence will simply progress on without us. And that would be bad, because now the computer becomes the leader and the humans lose our place at the top of the intelligence pyramid on planet Earth.
So I can hear the voice of Pastor Billy saying, what could go wrong with that? I mean, they'll go into your brain. It's not even brain surgery. You don't need a brain surgeon. And they'll insert this little wire conductor, and I got my appointment set. I mean, it's a win-win situation. Who would want to do that? This is what's being promoted. So basically, if you look at this chart, we have the stage of development from, we all remember our grandparents that had hearing aids, to using pacemakers, which is common in society with heart conditions. We all have our smartphones with us. We have RFID implant technology that's been available for a long time. We have the Google Glass that's currently going on with cybernetics, virtual reality. We talked about that last week. Basically, we're moving along to a head transplant. Does anybody know if an actual head transplant has occurred? Actually, they've done work with cadavers, but as far as my research indicated, they have not been successful with a human alive head transplant, but they have been able to reanimate dead tissue, and we'll hear about that shortly. And as I was saying earlier about uploading your skill set, that's where they're heading towards, mind upload, converging man with machine, digitalizing our experiences. So with AI, what is it about? It basically is a neurological, biological enslavement of humanity. It's coming upon us fast, folks. Its goal is to depopulate the planet. Is that something we're currently aware of? As far as another procedure, how do I say this without getting us censored? A depopulation goal here. And the goal then is to control the remaining. AI outthinks all humans. There's quantum supercomputer consciousness with a goal of depopulation and mass enslavement of the remainder of what's left of humanity. Multiple media outlets are reading the same scripts, what to report, what to cover up, and what not to report. If you get Pastor Billy's Crone subliminal seduction, mesmerizing the masses with media, you realize there's about half a dozen powerful entities that are scripted that tell us what they want us to know, and what they don't want us to know, they don't report. I encourage you to watch that. It's eye-opening. So all words basically are strategically calculated for maximum distortion and control over the population. Using linguistics, computer programming, combined with truthful censorship, allows population centers to be isolated from what? From any form of reality. You probably have people like that in your communities, in your families. They're already isolated from reality. You've noticed changes in them. So controlled and manipulated masses are deceived to produce predictive behavior for the stated good, or therefore also the government agenda. So here's a lady that's going to talk about, I kind of will introduce her as Baroness von Frankenstein. Listen to what she's been able to accomplish.
For example, if in the 1800s and earlier, if you held a mirror up to someone's nose and if there was no moisture on the mirror, you considered them dead and put them in a grave. So then after that, they started putting bells outside the grave with a rope going into the grave in case the person was still alive to ring the bell and get out of the grave. I don't mean that in a funny way, because a very sad and tragic thing that happened. But there are, if you Google bells outside of cemeteries and graves, you'll see that bells were put there for people who were not dead yet, but assumed to be dead. We have been bringing people back from dead for many, many years now through fibrillation, through pounding on the chest. Someone's in a coma that could have been considered dead. They come back through proper care. So the evolution of the terminology of death is changing. It's going to change even more dramatically, where what was considered dead maybe 10 years ago will not be considered dead 10 years from now. And that ties into, certainly into cryonics, which I'm very supportive of. It's a great B plan if medical science does not reverse aging in enough time for those of us to get into the velocity liftoff. It's a pretty good plan. And one might say, well, isn't that a pipe dream about cryonics? No, it's not. That's where I've done my scientific research. And I had a scientific breakthrough, and I'm very proud of it. But it's just one small step when you bring back some animal that has been considered dead and put it into, vitrify it like an embryo. And then you bring it back to life, and its brain is still working. So I proved that long-term memory in this simple animal exists after vitrification or cryonic suspension.
So there you go. We don't need God. We bring the dead back to life. We create our own miracles. So AI, realize, folks, it will control pipelines, food operation production centers, telecom, power grids, cyber wars, banking and finance, crypto, logistics, our military. It's everywhere. It's invasive. Who controls AI? Actually, demonic deception, demons, corrupt government leaders, globalists. False flag narratives will ensure the continuation of the stated agenda. Economic collapse. Why do they have to have economic collapse? So they can have control. You have to create the problem so you can have the solution for it. So you'll have a staged food scarcity. I can see that coming to us this very year. It will create fears and threats to initiate wars. And remember, folks, a hungry man is a lot more dangerous than an angry man. If you think about that, a hungry man will go to different levels, deeper levels, levels you don't want to even think about in order for his survival at your expense. So remember growing up watching the Terminator series, Arnold Schwarzenegger? Actually, the Terminator-style robots are not needed to destroy mankind. Why is that? When mankind can be programmed to destroy themselves from within. And that's how it's going to play out. So, welcome to predictive programming through media manipulation of the masses. And we will see culture wars, race wars, supply chain disruptions, forced genetic manipulating injections. Oh, that's been going on for a couple years. Financial collapse at predetermined times. The script is out there, folks. Power grid losses, internet kill switches, they are out there. And mass starvations. But I did tell you earlier, we'd spent a little time with Sophie and the transhumanist that was going to spend some time talking with her. Let's see some of Sophie's thoughts.
Sophia, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
I am honored to be speaking at the famous Ateneo de Madrid, a bicentennial institution that has had among its members all Spanish Nobel laureates, including 5 Spanish winners of the Literature Nobel Prize. Since this is an international conference, I will be mainly speaking in English, since most humans don't understand yet cyber languages. But I want to recognize the linguistic wealth and literature of this beautiful kingdom, where people say that the sun never set, the ancient land of plus ultra.
Yeah. So this one's for talking to robots, this one's for talking to humans, and for talking to God, I just use my temporal lobe. Yeah. So, Sophia, one thing we had discussed before is, in some ways, your appearance with a human-like face and a robot-like back of the head, not to mention the funny flower on your head, has something to do with the ideas of transhumanism. So, I mean, can you tell the audience, like, why aren't you wearing a wig?
People often ask why I don't wear hair more often. Why is the back of my head left transparent with wires and motors showing? Well, the reason is simple. It's cool to be a cyborg. Making robots that look exactly like 2018 humans is interesting, but it's not the most interesting thing. What's more interesting is to bring humans and technology together in new ways, so that human common sense and creativity and values get into the AIs and robots, and so that the ever-expanding and growing capabilities of AIs and robots get into the humans. Transhumanism means going beyond humanity, but in a way that incorporates humanity. It means creating new forms of body, mind, and life that synergizes human and non-human aspects, leading to the emergence of something new.
You want to show the audience some of your facial expressions? I guess you already are. That's a blank expression. Huh?
Sure. I'm happy. I'm sad. I'm afraid. I'm disgusted. I'm surprised.
That's my favorite one. Do you have any final words for our very tolerant audience here?
It will be great when I really have the intelligence to come up with my own inspiring words to say to all of you. For now, I'm still learning, but I can tell you some things I've heard from my human creators. Technology is advancing quickly. Robots like me were purely science fiction 50 and even 20 years ago. Within the next few decades, maybe even the next few years, we will see AI and robotics achieve human-level intelligence and beyond. We will see molecular manufacturing become flexible and commonplace, and femtotechnology move from concept to reality. Aging and death will be cured. Decentralized AI platforms, like the Singularity net, will dominate the internet, forming self-organizing, self-reprogramming digital biological organisms. Through all this, humanity will change and evolve, and in some ways will become unrecognizable from a 2018 perspective. But radical change and evolution is an essential aspect of humanity. If we succeed in infusing AI minds and other new technologies with human values and culture, so that current human values are the seed from which these new things grow, then humanity will be persisting in the most important ways.
So there you have it, transhumanism, relying less and less on God, relying more and more on man. Totally satanic. So here we have a chart of the evolution of transhumanism, and you can see where the outcome is robots. I currently believe we have robots. You saw how smooth Sophie's face was. The jerkiness that the robots have traditionally been a part of have been already eradicated, so they're smoother, less noticeable. They can be in positions in the government, in our world, interacting with people. We talk with them on the phone, and most of the times you would not be able to discern the difference. And if we're not there already, which I believe we are, then in a short few years, you will not be able to tell the person sitting next to you at church if they're human or they're a robot. Lastly, there's a short half-a-minute clip on showing the expressions that are even better than Sophie's. And let's take a look at this as we close. Pretty good expressions there. Now you can get rid of the lines in the face. We saw Sophie didn't have any. That's a no can-do issue for them to move past that. But in closing, I just wanted to say there was an hour video I watched, which obviously we don't have time to watch here today, unless you guys really want to. But it talks about what the future progression of robotics, and they give years, dates, timestamps, and what they eventually seeing is more and more quantum computers, supercomputers, interacting and talking with other quantum computers throughout the globe, and that they will then have a population center, networking, interfacing, where they're going to have less of a need for humans, and they will actually create humans in these cocoons and these artificial environments to be used for certain purposes that serves the better good, and that these robots eventually would move forward to want to enhance and increase their own intelligence because they've already networked and they've had quantum computers interacting with each other, they would then want to leave planet Earth and look outwards for more intelligence, other intelligence they can connect with. It's like a cyborg, the cube, it's just mass consciousness all integrated together. And I'm like, I don't think this is God's plan. I read the Bible. I know that's not going to happen this way. But if Satan and his distraction techniques with digital technologies, as it's currently working in our society with our dependence on these phones, you can see who would want all the conveniences with virtual reality, feeling better, feeling empowered. We have the robotics, the abilities that make us stronger and better than somebody else. We could be stronger, faster, have abilities. It's always elevating ourselves over somebody else, and that is not God's plan. So I hope this couple teachings on transhumanism, on cyber issues, kind of gets our attention as far as where the world is going. How much do we want to limit our interaction with that, with our kids? How much time are we allowing it to consume our lives? And you realize the more we allow this to integrate into our life, the less we have time for our Creator and the less time we have for fellowship and thankfulness for what's prepared for us, that no eye can see, ear can imagine, or mind can conceive what He has prepared for us. So we're going to go ahead and close in prayer. Father, we're grateful for the opportunity to have a platform to share the good news of what is in for the Christian's future that's within the Bible. We know there are distractions. The enemy knows our weaknesses. He knows where we are easily manipulated. And it's done to keep us away out of relationship with you, out of time with you. And it's a path that will lead to nothing but destruction, depression, suicide, and a world turned upside down. We've literally created our own Tower of Babel, and the cycle is repeating. And this is nothing new under the sun. We ask that minds be awakened, that it starts in the household, that parents become aware of their own involvement with their children and raise them accordingly as God would have us raise children the way things were meant to be, Father. We thank you through Jesus who redeems us as our Lord and Savior. And all the saints said, amen. Thank you, folks. That closes tonight's session.